Part 1. Laughing in the Void, the secret art of inner alchemy. There is a kind of laughter that does not come from joy. It rises from the ashes of pain, from a place so deep and raw that most people don't even know it exists. This is not the laughter of comedy clubs or sitcoms. It is the laughter of the absurd, the existential, the almost tragic. And only a certain kind of mind, the highly intelligent loner, seems capable of turning agony into irony with such strange elegance. You've seen it. Maybe you've lived it. The person who, after surviving the most brutal heartbreak or soul-crushing disappointment, cracks a joke so sharp it slices through the moment like a blade of light. You start to realize something profound. The people who make us laugh the most are often the ones who have suffered the deepest. They've met despair. They've stared into the void, and instead of letting it swallow them, they learn to dance with it, to mock it, to outwit it. Albert Camus once said, "The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion." Humor for the highly intelligent loner is exactly that, an act of rebellion against meaninglessness, against despair, against the unbearable weight of being. We do not laugh because life is funny. We laugh because it is unbearable not to. Pain, when processed through the mind of someone who refuses to be crushed by it, becomes something else entirely. It becomes fuel. It becomes material. It becomes a kind of raw, chaotic clay that can be shaped into irony, satire, and the sharpest form of wit. This is not avoidance. This is not deflection. This is transmutation, psychological alchemy at its finest. But how do we do it? How do we take something as heavy as suffering and turn it into something as light as laughter without losing the depth behind it? The first step is this: we must see pain clearly. Not dramatize it, not minimize it, but stare it down like a mad philosopher staring into eternity. You have to name it, understand it, sit with it, and then only then can you begin to play with it. Because laughter at its highest form is not escapism. It is transcendence. The highly intelligent loner is uniquely equipped for this process because you've lived in your mind long enough to notice its patterns. You know when your thoughts are spiraling. You know when your emotions are lying. You know when your suffering is real, and when it's just your ego throwing a tantrum. You have the meta-awareness to observe your pain from a higher vantage point. And from that vantage point, everything becomes a little absurd. And absurdity is the birthplace of comedy. But it's not just about awareness. It's about courage. You have to be brave enough to laugh at yourself, to mock your own mind, to see the ridiculousness of your patterns, your expectations, your self-sabotage. You have to be willing to break the sacred image of yourself that you've built. Because the deeper the pain, the more sacred it feels. And that's exactly what makes it funny. When you realize that even your deepest torment is just another character in the cosmic sitcom.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Have you ever considered this question? What if the universe itself is a comedian with a cruel sense of timing? What if the things you take most seriously are being observed by something infinitely wiser, shaking its head and chuckling? That shift alone, from victim to observer, from sufferer to narrator, changes everything. You stop drowning in your pain and start directing it like a scene in a surreal play. And your audience? Maybe just you. Maybe the stars. Maybe no one. But the performance itself becomes liberation. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "Man alone suffers so excruciatingly in the world that he was compelled to invent laughter." He was not being cynical. He was being precise. Laughter is not a luxury. It is survival. And for the highly intelligent loner, it is also strategy. Because when you learn to laugh at the things that once crushed you, you become unbreakable. You become untouchable. You become free. But let's make this practical. How do we turn pain into humor on a daily basis? First, you narrate your suffering like a detached philosopher documenting a tragicomic experiment. Give your pain a name. Give your sadness a ridiculous accent. Turn your anxiety into a character. When your mind spirals, imagine it as a frantic intern trying to impress a boss who doesn't exist. Suddenly, the pressure dissolves. The illusion is exposed. And what remains is a strange kind of playfulness. Second, you write it out, not as a journal of suffering, but as a stand-up routine you'll never perform. Exaggerate your misery. Turn your worst day into a sitcom episode. Make your heartbreak so dramatic it becomes operatic. When you do this, you're not mocking your pain. You're depowering it. You're reclaiming agency over your narrative. You're showing your pain that you are the author now, not the victim. Third, you share it, but only with those who can hold the paradox. The paradox is this: your joke is funny, and the pain behind it is real. Only those with depth will understand that. Most people will either laugh and miss the pain or pity you and miss the joke. That's why your audience must be chosen with care. Real humor is sacred. It requires intelligence, empathy, and a willingness to feel the uncomfortable tension between tragedy and comedy. And finally, you practice what I call existential humor. This is the art of laughing at the big questions. Why are we here? Why do we suffer? What is the point of all this? When you stare into the abyss and it stares back, you wink. You crack a joke. You quote Sartre like a meme. You realize that the weight of existence is only unbearable if you take it at face value. But if you see it through the eyes of a cosmic trickster, suddenly, everything becomes play. So I ask you this: what pain in your life have you been taking too seriously? What story are you telling yourself that is begging to be rewritten as dark comedy? What if the very thing that has broken you is the source of your greatest punchline? Can you find the irony in your wounds? Can you be both the protagonist and the absurd narrator of your own drama? Because here's the secret no one tells you. Humor is not the opposite of pain. Humor is what happens after pain, when the soul has seen enough to know it can't die from this, when the mind has cracked open enough to see the game, when the heart has broken and rebuilt itself so many times that it laughs at the idea of permanence. You are not broken. You are brilliantly aware. You are not bitter. You are finely tuned to absurdity. You are not detached. You are deeply engaged, just in your own language. And that language happens to be laced with irony, shaped by sorrow, and delivered with the kind of timing that only pain can teach. In the next part, we will explore how this transformation evolves further, how to channel humor into relationships, art, communication, and even leadership. We'll explore the psychology of comic resilience, the philosophy of paradoxical truth, and how to master the emotional balance between lightness and gravity. Part 2, Mastering the Paradox, the alchemical power of comic awareness. Once you've begun to see the absurdity in your own pain, something profound begins to occur. You no longer carry your suffering as a weight. You carry it as a weapon of wisdom, sharpened by laughter and wrapped in paradox. You begin to realize that humor is not a break from the truth. It is a different way of telling the truth. One that slips past defenses, disarms trauma, and delivers insight in a package the psyche can actually digest. This is where the highly intelligent loner starts to move through the world as a kind of secret healer, a philosopher in disguise, cloaked in sarcasm, and you begin to see that humor is an entertainment. It's alchemy, the oldest kind, the transformation of emotional lead into gold. Not by denying the density of pain, but by recontextualizing it. You look at your scars not as shameful marks, but as punchlines in a cosmic joke too elaborate for most to grasp. You start to laugh not because life is easy, but because you've seen how ridiculous it is to expect it to be anything else. And in that laughter, you reclaim power over the narrative. This is where the paradox becomes your greatest tool. You can say the hardest truths, and people still listen. Why? Because you made them laugh. But what they don't realize is that you just slipped a philosophical dagger through their emotional armor. You told them something real, and you did it with a smile. That is the genius of the highly intelligent loner who uses humor as a form of intellectual judo, turning the gravity of suffering into something graceful, digestible, and even beautiful. Consider this: when a comedian jokes about depression, heartbreak, or failure, we laugh not because we're cruel, but because we recognize ourselves in their pain. We are laughing at how human we are, at how absurdly predictable our struggles are, at how universal our private chaos actually is. And in that shared recognition, our shame begins to evaporate. That is the secret. The joke, when done right, is never just laughter. It is liberation. This is why the highly intelligent loner doesn't seek the spotlight, but often becomes a mirror for others. You walk into a room and instantly pick up on the undercurrents, the tension, the insecurities, the unsaid truths hovering like ghosts. And rather than confronting it with force, you pierce it with humor. You say the thing no one else will say, but you say it in a way that makes people laugh instead of put up walls. That's not just social skill. That's psychological sorcery. But let's be honest, this power doesn't come without a cost. There are nights when your own jokes echo in your mind, and you wonder if anyone realizes how much truth was hidden beneath the laughter. There are moments when you make everyone around you laugh, yet walk home feeling completely unseen. Because the deeper your humor goes, the more isolated it can feel. You're not performing. You're translating pain into a language most people only half understand. And yet there's beauty in that solitude, because it gives you something no crowd can offer: clarity. You become your own audience. You laugh not to be heard, but to heal. You write jokes that no one else will ever hear. You turn your internal monologues into dialogues with the absurd. You become both the philosopher and the fool, and that paradox makes you whole. Plato said, "Even the gods love jokes." And perhaps that is because humor is the only way to survive eternity. If existence itself is infinite, then the only sane response is to laugh at the idea that we ever thought we could control it, that we ever thought we could predict, plan, or perfect anything. Humor is the crack in the illusion, the reminder that we are not here to dominate life, but to play with it. So how do we bring this into our relationships? How do we use this strange, sacred humor in our connections with others? The first principle is this: never use humor to hide. Use it to reveal. The loner's temptation is to use sarcasm or wit as a shield, to deflect vulnerability. But the real power is when you use humor to invite vulnerability. When your joke says, "Yes, I've been there too." When your sarcasm isn't a wall, but a door. You begin to master the art of comic timing, not just for laughs, but for intimacy. You know when to drop the joke, when to let the silence speak, when to follow your laughter with a truth that lands like a whisper in the soul. This is humor not as distraction, but as bridge. And through that bridge, people come closer to their own truth and to yours. You also begin to infuse this humor into your creative work. Maybe you write, maybe you design, maybe you speak. Whatever your craft, you realize that humor is the Trojan horse of wisdom. Slip a profound insight inside a laugh, and people will carry it with them for life. Use irony to expose injustice. Use satire to challenge norms. Use wit to make people think. Because when people laugh, they are open. And when they are open, they can change. But here's the next level. You start using humor as self-therapy. You catch yourself spiraling and narrate the chaos like an absurd documentary. You turn your fear into a ridiculous inner monologue. You mock your own ego so effectively that it can't take itself seriously anymore. And in these moments, you are not escaping your emotions. You are disarming them. You are turning the monster into a meme, the wound into a skit. You're not rejecting your pain, you're rewriting it. And this is where the loner becomes something rare, a master of inner lightness. Not lightness as naivety, but as discipline. The discipline of not letting darkness define you. The discipline of laughing, even when it's hard. The discipline of choosing levity, not because you're shallow, but because you've seen the depths and decided to carry them lightly. That is strength. That is freedom. So I ask you now, what if your humor is not a mask, but a map? A map that leads others and yourself out of the labyrinth. What if the universe gave you this mind, this wit, this dark sense of irony, not as a glitch but as a gift? What if your role here is not just to survive your pain, but to translate it for others? To make it bearable, to make it humorous, to make it humorous. Because the world doesn't need more seriousness, it needs more serious play. It needs minds that can hold complexity without collapsing, hearts that can feel deeply without drowning, souls that can laugh at the madness and still love through it. In the final part, we will go even deeper. We'll explore the sacred archetype of the trickster, the inner clown, the wise fool. We'll look at how the highly intelligent loner becomes a quiet revolutionary not through rebellion but through comic clarity. We'll uncover how to live with full awareness while still laughing at the script, and how to become a beacon of lightness in a world addicted to heaviness. Part 3. The trickster within becoming the sacred fool who sees everything. There is a mysterious figure that appears in every culture, every mythology, every ancient story. You'll find him in Norse tales as Loki, in Native American stories as Coyote, in Hindu mythology as Krishna, and in the tarot as the Fool. He is the one who speaks in riddles, laughs at kings, dances in chaos, and jokes while the world burns. But what few understand is that this figure is not just a character, it's an archetype buried in our collective unconscious. And for the highly intelligent loner, this archetype is not just a symbol, it's a mirror. You are the modern-day trickster, not because you want to deceive, but because you see through illusion. You live in a world addicted to seriousness, addicted to status, addicted to suffering. And yet, you walk through it with a grin, not because you don't feel the weight, but because you've learned how to carry it differently. The trickster is not the fool because he knows nothing. He is the fool because he knows too much and chooses laughter as his response. Carl Jung described the trickster as a primitive cosmic being of divine animal nature, on the one hand superior to man because of his superhuman qualities, and on the other hand inferior to him because of his unreason and unconsciousness. But you, the modern loner, are not unconscious. You are hyperconscious. You've seen the systems. You've cracked the social codes. You've watched the theater of human behavior from the balcony, and while others cry over the drama, you quietly note the absurdity of the script. This is not detachment, it is depth. The sacred fool doesn't laugh because he doesn't care. He laughs because he cares too deeply and knows that if he doesn't laugh, he will break. And so he becomes the alchemist of emotion. He transforms his own pain into medicine for others, not through lectures, not through sermons, but through humor, the softest knife, the sharpest truth. You realize that the world is not saved by seriousness. It is healed by levity, by those rare souls who can speak the truth without bitterness, who can hold grief in one hand and laughter in the other, who can be fully awake and still find the courage to play. That is your power. And the more you embrace it, the more people will begin to feel something around you that they can't quite name. They'll say you're funny. They'll say you're different. What they won't realize is that you're free. But freedom comes with responsibility. The trickster is not just a jester. He's a guide, a disruptor, a mirror. When you walk into a room and crack a joke that cuts through tension like a blade, you're not just being funny, you're rebalancing energy. When you point out the absurdity of a situation, you're not just being witty, you're offering perspective. And when you laugh at your own suffering, you're not just coping, you're transforming. But let's go deeper. What happens when you begin to consciously live as this archetype? When your life becomes a kind of performance art, not fake, but intentional. You begin to design your reality around paradox. You stop trying to be understood, and instead, you communicate with symbols, stories, and satire. You no longer seek validation because your humor already reveals your truth. You are no longer afraid of being alone because solitude is where your sharpest jokes are born. You begin to play with reality, not in the shallow sense, but in the sacred one. You challenge conventions with a smirk. You question beliefs with a joke. You expose ego with a dance. And people follow, not because you demand it, but because your presence makes them feel free. You are not a leader in the traditional sense. You are a frequency, a vibration that reminds others of what they've forgotten, that life is not a prison, it's a paradox. And here's the next revelation: your humor becomes a form of intuitive intelligence. You no longer think your way through life. You feel your way through the absurdity. You sense when to speak, when to stay silent, when to drop a truth disguised as a joke that will echo in someone's mind for weeks. You are no longer reacting to life. You are dancing with it. You are improvising with the universe itself. But there is one final level. The sacred fool eventually becomes the mentor, the guide, the comedian who becomes the philosopher, the loner who becomes the quiet revolutionary. Not because you've changed your essence, but because you've refined it. You start to teach others not through lectures, but through example. You show them how to take their pain and laugh anyway, how to use suffering as seasoning, not identity, how to live fully without being consumed. You become a model of emotional freedom, because humor is proof that you are no longer bound. And when others see that proof in you, they begin to imagine the same for themselves. That's how change happens, not through force, through invitation, through laughter that carries truth, through jokes that carry light, through presence that carries paradox. And so we return to the deepest question: what will you do with your pain now? Will you keep it locked away, treating it like an unhealed wound? Or will you turn it into performance, into poetry, into punchlines so sharp they could carve open the minds of the asleep? Will you hide your scars, or will you let them become metaphors that make others feel seen? Will you mourn endlessly, or will you stand up broken, brilliant, and laughing? Because in the end, life will never stop being absurd. People will never stop disappointing you. The world will always be a chaotic, unpredictable mess. But you are different now. You no longer need it to make sense. You just need it to be playable. And you, my friend, have learned how to play. So laugh. Laugh hard. Laugh deep. Laugh in the face of your own history. Laugh in the mirror. Laugh in the silence. Because every time you do, you are not escaping pain. You are mastering it. And that mastery, quiet, strange, and subversive, is the most powerful kind of revolution. The world is full of noise, but your laughter is surgical. It cuts through illusion. It reveals what's real. And it leaves behind a strange, sacred echo that says, I have suffered, I have seen, I have laughed anyway. And that, dear trickster, is your legacy.